When we look at the variety of anime genres, I think it's safe to say that the sports genre is one of the most consistent of all, having produced numerous great works over the years, again and again. If I were to ask you about the greatest, most successful and best sports anime of our time, I think many different names would come to mind immediately. Most of you would mention Haikyuu without hesitation, undoubtedly a series that has profoundly shaped the sports anime genre in the past decade, overshadowing everything else in this field. Others would point at Hajime no Ippo, a masterpiece that defined the 2000s. And if we go a little further back, it's impossible to overlook Slam Dunk, indisputably one of the most beloved anime series of the 90s. But what would you think if I were to suggest right here and now that we make Free a part of this discussion? Free? Seriously? The anime about a bunch of swimmers with odd characters and unnecessary fan service? That's probably what many of you would respond. But yes, that's precisely the anime I'm referring to. An anime that started off with a bang a decade ago, enjoyed great popularity, but then gradually lost significance to the point that, I assume, the vast majority of you didn't even realize that the last film of the series was released last year, marking the end of the show. While Haikyuu, Hajime no Ippo and Slam Dunk have long been etched into the annals of history, Free is far from achieving such recognition, as far away as one can imagine. However, as you can guess from the title of this video, I personally believe that this anime deserves far more attention than it currently receives. Quite the contrary, I consider Free, and some may scoff at this notion, to be a misunderstood masterpiece that, at least in glimpses, has shown its true potential. This is a plea for the anime that perhaps had the best conditions to become something great, but only revealed its brilliance when it was already too late. In essence, when it comes to the plot of the show, if you're considering watching Free, you don't really need to know much more than the fact that it revolves around a group of boys who form a swimming club in high school, purely out of their love for swimming. They go through various experiences, participate in competitions, and occasionally face tensions among themselves, such as when a childhood friend behaves differently than before. And I suppose that's what most people somehow remember about the anime, if they've ever seen it. And although I just mentioned that you don't need to know much more about the story, if you delve just a little deeper, it offers you a view on the anime from a completely different perspective. Because Haruka Nanase, our main character, is, upon closer inspection, like many teenagers his age, a lost soul. Since childhood, he has been undeniably regarded by those around him as the greatest swimming talent they have ever seen. However, Haru constantly approaches everything and everyone with an almost stoic indifference, claiming that he swims solely for the sake of swimming. A talent at 10 years old, a genius at 15 years old, and just ordinary at 20 years old. That's a saying his grandmother taught him when he was a child. Ironically, Haru repeatedly recites the phrase throughout the series, but never finishes it. This is because he himself struggles with his future, unsure of what he wants to make of himself and his talent, whether he wants to do anything at all, or if he will simply fade into insignificance. When one of his best friends, Rin, whom he hasn't seen in years, returns from Australia and wants to have nothing to do with him, it naturally affects Haru even more. Rin is an equally intriguing personality as Haru, almost the exact mirror image of him. He has been consumed by ambition for some time now, wanting to be better than everyone he encounters, never satisfied with his own performance. The anime portrays the paths of two young individuals who are searching for themselves and contemplating the desires they have for their own futures. One seems trapped in lethargy, while the other would prefer to break down any walls that appear to hold him back in his imagination. If we take a closer look at Rin or Haruka, we can even identify parallels with characters from other anime series that have been highly praised by critics, such as March Comes In Like a Lion, where the main character grapples with similar self-expectations and the meaning of life, much like Rin and Haruka in Free. However, they haven't received the same reviews at all, and, in the opinion of many, there is a significant disparity in their quality. Ultimately, while Haruka and Rin may be the characters that receive the most focus, the anime does not exclude the other characters in any way. Makoto, Nagisa, Rei, Sosuke, and all the others also have to confront the question of what they want to make of their lives. Especially when you're still in school, it's common to push tomorrow's problems aside. As the beautiful time approaches its end, the desire to avoid thinking about the inevitable future can become stronger and stronger. There comes a point for everyone when they wish they could freeze time and yearn for the everlasting happiness of their own little world. But nobody can stop time, and the pressure and expectations from external sources only get more if one tries too hard to ignore the future that none of us can avoid. And when the pressure becomes overwhelming, one quickly feels left alone with their worries, unsure of how to cope. This brings us back to Haruka, who, in one of the undoubtedly best scenes of the anime, succumbs to that pressure during a tournament and is unable to continue swimming. When everyone tells you what they expect from you, how great you are, and that you're gonna receive special attention from everybody, there is a chance that it can be motivating for a person. However, if, like Haru, you simply want to enjoy swimming for its own sake, the expectations and hopes of others can subject you to extreme stress. When suddenly the future collapses on you, a future you have ignored for so long, the shock is twice as great and can cause more uncertainty than before. On top of that, you see your own friends drifting further away, moving toward their future, making progress and not standing still compared to yourself. It's scary, but you can't run away anymore. You have to dive into the cold water. Free shows us viewers that what comes tomorrow may be unpredictable, that we cannot anticipate what the next day will bring, but that this doesn't have to be something bad. As long as we have the courage to pursue with determination what we set out to do, to pursue what we are passionate about and love, then we can overcome almost anything that awaits us in the next phase of our lives. You can't win a race if you're too scared to take the first step, but if that first step is successful, the second step doesn't feel so difficult, the third even less so, and before you know it, you are much closer to your goals, dreams, and desires than you could have ever imagined at the beginning. And in Rin's case, the message is that it sometimes can be advantageous not to rush and to continually work on oneself, but not to be disappointed if something is not achieved immediately. Because even though it may feel like being left behind as everyone else seems to be running ahead, the friends you have traveled your path with so far have not suddenly disappeared. This brings us to the next major theme of the series, which, if you take a closer look, is basically the essence of so many anime: unity and friendship. I don't think that the four boys initially formed a swim club because they wanted to participate in competitions and emerge victorious at any cost. No, it was about the simple joy of swimming, about doing something you love together. In the first season, Rin claimed that he preferred being a lone wolf, believing that if you want to achieve success, you can only rely on yourself, while others are merely obstacles to overcome. But was he truly happy in the long run? Not at all. Turning away from his friends only brought him sadness, anger, and resentment. He thought he was all alone in this world, and the only way out of the pit he had fallen into was to be the absolute best and push everyone else aside on his journey. Swimming as a team? Nonsense. It only distracts you, weakens you, and diverts the focus away from yourself. Those would probably have been his words. But Rin came to realize that he didn't lose strength by enjoying swimming with others. No, the exact opposite was the case. He drew his power from it, from the feeling that they could accomplish anything together. The concept of the power of friendship is often ridiculed as a worn-out cliché because it has been excessively portrayed in countless anime series. However, in some cases, like this one, dismissing it as outdated and foolish doesn't do justice to the anime, because it's unquestionable that in a group, together with friends, you can achieve a great deal. Free attempts to earnestly and credibly explore this theme without presenting an exaggerated or caricatured image. The problems the characters carry with them feel genuine, just as their friendship among themselves feels genuine. When they argue, when they rejoice, when they are sad, when they laugh, I never felt that what was unfolding before my eyes lacked meaning. No, I empathized with the characters and enjoyed the journey they went through individually as well as together. It was simply beautiful to see that the anime understood how to tell an emotional story that authentically captures all the ups and downs. Life doesn't always go smoothly, but every rough phase also comes to an end. How friendship can liberate you from difficult times and how far it can take you in good times, Free portrayed that exceptionally well. At the same time, the anime captures exactly what is inevitable for many in the process of growing up. I mentioned earlier that one's own future can be unsettling because you never know what the next day will bring or what your life plans will look like. However, when entering a new phase of life, it can also happen that the people we thought we would spend our entire lives with, those we believed nothing could break that bond that we had with them, can suddenly disappear from our lives as quickly as they appeared. The family is forced to move, another person has personal problems and distances themselves from the rest of the group, and with the third person, there isn't even a specific reason. You simply drift apart. Suddenly, after having a group of friends that you thought would last a lifetime, you find yourself in a situation where you are alone again, just when you thought you had overcome this issue. These highs and lows of life can either make you feel too secure or throw you into an endless pit from which you think you will never escape. However, as Free shows us, we will experience a series of losses in our lives and have to say goodbye to people hundreds of times, those whom we never want to let go and want by our side forever. But saying goodbye doesn't mean that it has to be for eternity. Life consists of experiences of loss, but also of finding and being found. People may lose sight of each other, but they can also find each other again. It may sound sentimental, but the bonds we have formed with others are not as easily broken as we might think. And it's those very bonds that ensure that we find our way back to each other, no matter how long we haven't seen each other or how different the paths may be we have taken in life. Life occasionally holds surprises for us, ones we never expected, and in the end, we find ourselves sitting at the table again with those whom we thought we would never see again. Even if we drift apart, ultimately everything leads back to a point of reunion. So, now I've talked a bit about why I personally believe that Free has much more to offer than someone might notice at first sight. But why do a majority of viewers, or a majority of the anime community in general, have such a different standpoint compared to me? Well, despite all the great ideas and approaches that I appreciate in Free, I think it must be mentioned that fan service has always played a role since Season 1. In Season 1, it was the most extreme, and the underlying tone that accompanied certain scenes made it clear what the creators and animators were aiming for. This was obviously a move to target a specific audience, which I suspect at least led those who were bothered by this fan service or the characters' peculiar behavior to give the anime a particular label, which Free probably deserved at the beginning. As a result, a fair amount of people had formed an impression of the anime in their minds, and the damage had already been done. However, what many, I think, ignored was that in the later seasons there was less and even no fan service of that kind anymore. Free had tried to emancipate itself from the viewer's perspective. But once something is stamped with a certain label, it can be challenging to fight against it. If it's too late, then it's just too late. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that was the case with Free. Therefore, many people were not willing to look beyond the cliché that the anime embodied and couldn't recognize its beauty and great story. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that one could even call Free a misunderstood masterpiece. I have to admit that may be a bit exaggerated. When compared to anime series like Haikyuu, Hajime no Ippo or Slam Dunk, Free clearly falls short in terms of storytelling. However, if a more serious approach had been taken, removing the fan service and focusing even more on the interpersonal issues, I believe Free had the potential to reach much higher levels than what the general perception of the anime is right now. Just looking at the animation alone, Kyoto Animation doesn't have to hide behind all the other studios that, for example, have produced Haikyuu or Kuroko no Basket. And we have witnessed what Kyoto Animation is truly capable of with anime series like Violet Evergarden. They have an incredibly keen sense of aesthetics and beauty, and that same beauty can be found in Free. Furthermore, even though Free belongs to the sports anime genre, it's not solely focused on the principle of higher, faster, further, but rather on the pure enjoyment of the sport. Competitions are still an important part, but Free doesn't rely on them as heavily as other similar anime series do. An attempt is made to tell a, even if one may not believe it, mature story that not only highlights the problems that come with sports, but also illuminates the characters as a whole, as the ordinary people they are, and who, like all of us in life, can encounter ordinary obstacles and problems. Without a doubt, Free has its flaws, but on the other hand, so much potential for improvement that it can be painful to think about what could have been. However, it remains an incredibly wonderful anime series that I could enjoy without hesitation, and I sincerely hope that more people will dare to give Free a chance, because sometimes something is filled with much more heart and soul than one might initially suspect.